Good morning, my friend. I hope you're doing well. I'm pretty congested today. I'm just going to go ahead and warn you. My voice is weird and stuffy. Not sure what's going on. It might be the start of spring, some allergens showing up. And also, Lisa got me a new office chair a couple episodes back. Really comfortable leather chair for the desk, but it's a little bit squeaky when I move around, so you might hear a little creak here and there until it gets broken in. So deal with that. It is what it is, right? I hope you're doing well. It's dark outside. It's about 4:45 in the morning, 24 March 2021. It's a Wednesday. I had a great day in surgery yesterday. I work with a good team. I'm really blessed. I'm super happy to be here in North Platte, Nebraska. And wherever you are right now listening, I hope you're getting ready to have a great day. And if you obviously will hear this sometime after I record it, but I hope that this day is a blessing to you. Sit down, have a cup of coffee with me. We're going to talk about a few things as we wrap up Mind Change March. Lisa and I have been talking about all the emails and stuff we're getting from around the world, people kind of getting on board with this idea of, hey, it's time to change your mind. And we've had to kind of think about some things that we want to get squared away, because if we want to become infinitely happier, we have to change our minds first, right? So we've spent the month of March kind of figuring out all the different places and things that we want to tighten up, square away, quit, start, whatever it is that you're dealing with. But it's almost the end of March, so it's time to quit thinking about stuff, and it's time to start doing stuff. That's what Action April is going to be about. And so just kind of want to give you, now we got 8 days left in the month, and just want to kind of get you in a mindset of, okay, we're figuring stuff out, we're going to square it away, and we're going to hit the ground running. April is time to go, right? No more talking. As the Home Depot commercials say, less talking, more doing, right? One of the things that you can do if you really want to change your life is get to know the Lord more. I don't pull any punches here. I'm a brain surgeon. I'm a neuroscientist. I'm a man of science, but I'm also, my core value system is that I believe in Jesus Christ, and that He's the path to happiness. He's the path to eternal life. He's the one and only reason that we have any hope in this world. And I'm looking at a picture of him right now. Akiani's Prince of Peace is a great rendering of what she had a dream and what Jesus might look like. And you should read that story, by the way. Pretty cool story about that painting, Prince of Peace. I'll put a link to it in the show notes for your reference. But anyway, so I don't make any secret about the fact that I believe that the basis for our hope, the basis for me teaching you that you can become infinitely happier in this hard world, the basis for me telling you that you can get through all these options, choices, and that you really can find a way to have meaning and purpose in a life, even when you lose your son, even when you have a divorce, even when you lose your job, even when you become bankrupt, even when you have a brain tumor, even when this, that, or the other thing happens. The reason for the foundation of all of that hope is Jesus Christ. I don't mess around with that. And if you want to know more about Him, we are doing a Bible study starting in April called John to Know and James to Grow. And the reason for that is the book of John, the Gospel of John in the New Testament, the fourth book in the New Testament. And you go to Bible Gateway or the Bible app or YouVersion or any other place for free on your phone that you're already holding and listening to me talking into your ear probably, and get you a Bible app if you don't have one. And if you're not a believer, then okay, just accept the fact that Jesus of Nazareth is the most famous human being in the world. And if somebody's coattails or somebody's legend has lasted for 2 centuries and people are still talking about and reading about and writing about that person, then it would probably be a smart idea to learn something about that person. Whether or not you believe he was God might be helpful to you to just figure out who he really is. And one of the problems that we have in our lives is that we think about and talk about stuff, and we post things on social media, and we read headlines, but we don't really dive into things anymore. We don't really go deep and learn the truth about things. And a good example of that is what happened in the political season last year. Like how much information was shared, and things that we all believed, or things that people thought were true and weren't true, because everybody was sharing memes and headlines and little bits of information, but nobody really went deep and tried to figure out what was really happening, right? We're seeing now what was really happening, by the way. So if you want to know Jesus Christ, get yourself in the Bible and read about Jesus in the book of John. That the Gospel of John will give you the clearest picture of who Jesus Christ was as a human being And the reason that he's such a talked about and followed leader here 2,000 years later. So even if you're not a believer, do that. I think it'll change your mind about who Jesus was, who you think he was. So we're doing a Bible study called John to Know and James to Grow. The book of James, the physical earthly brother of Jesus, was a guy named James, right? One of the apostles. And he later wrote the book of James. And James is a 5-chapter little tiny handbook of practical ways to live the Christian life. So again, if you're not a Christian, but you want to know what this is all about and why Christianity has been such an enduring thing in the world, or why Christians seem to be wired differently than other people, or should seem to be wired differently than other people, then get yourself in the book of James. You can read it in about 45 minutes. If you download one of those Bible apps and get in James, you can learn all about it. And it's some good practical stuff. So we're going to do this study, 30 days. We're going to do one chapter of John every day until we're done with John, and one chapter of James, and we'll have a few days left to cover some ground. I'm going to give you some books to read, some things to think about, some practical things, some checklists. And we're going to do John to Know, James to Grow starting in April. I'm going to put a link in the show notes. You can click in there, put your email address in, and you'll get all the stuff that everybody else is doing. About 100 people already have signed up to do this with us starting in April. Now that we've worked through the Bible in 90 days, we're going to go deep now. And we're going to just keep on doing Bible studies together because I'm doing it every day anyway, so you might as well join me. So John to Know, James to Grow is the name of the study. We're going to click on the link in the show notes and sign up. It's going to be amazing. That's one thing you can do to change your mind and actually take action starting in April. Another thing that's coming, probably won't be ready by the end of April, but maybe, is the Infinitely Happier app. And we are tired of how negative and how false so much social media is. So we're going to try to build a community, a little place where you can go on an app, and it looks just like any other app. You can download and put it on your phone, and we can just build our own community. And you know what? We're not going to tolerate all this negative, fake stuff. We want to get real. We want to connect people, share ideas, have a good place for positive community to develop. And at first, the app is going to be by invitation only, and the invitations will come through my newsletter subscribers. So if you're interested in getting involved in the community, really taking it to a level where you actually are meeting people and getting to know people inside this community, then the place to do that is by going to wlee1md.com/newsletter. I'm really not sure why I call it a newsletter. It's not like I'm sharing news. But it's a weekly letter that I send out. I've been writing every day since 2014, every week since 2014, and it's just prescriptions for how you can change your mind, and it's always been about that. And of course, Lisa and I can't help ourselves. We share some stuff about our lives and what's going on. We share things that we hear from listeners and readers, and talk about Harvey and Lewis a lot and all of that. But it's just a place where this community kind of centers, and we're going to kind of take that and turn it into an active and online, like live place with the app. So you'll find out about the app when it comes out, when it's ready, by being part of the newsletter. So go to wlee1md.com/newsletter. Now, we started season 2 with where we're going back in episode 1, and then episode 2 was get right. So I told you there's 3 things that you have to do if you really want to change your life. One is you got to be real. You got to be right about who you are. All the things you've been through, all the stuff that you've done in the past, all of that, you got to get right about that. You got to figure out who you really are, right? Because we have all these labels and all these ideas and all these things that life has put on us, but God has somebody that you are. God has your real identity and who you are. You're made in His image, and He loves you, and that's the bottom line. So go back to episode 1 of season 2, where we're going, and then go to episode 2 and get right. And then we got stuck in the Texas ice storm, right? Episode 3 was supposed to be get real, but it turned out to be we were stuck and couldn't podcast. So I started sending out some old episodes while we were out of town, and we didn't get around to get real and mission creep until episode 7. So go back and get those 3. And then the plan was for episode 4 to be get clear. So you get right about who you are. You get real about what you want, what your purpose is, where God wants you to go in your life. And then the third step is you get clear about how to get there. You got to clear up some of the stuff that doesn't work. You got to stop doing the things over and over and over and over and over again that you've tried a million times, and you got to break some of those chains and break some of those habits and break some of those cycles and get really, really clear about how you're going to accomplish this mission and purpose that God is calling you to. That's how you're going to get on the path to becoming infinitely happier, even though life is still hard, right? So today, I just want to finish those thoughts because it's almost the end of Mind Change March. It's time to stop thinking. It's time to start doing. It's getting ready to be Action April, and I want us to have 30 days of April to every day to wake up and say, I did it right yesterday. And we're going to have some mistakes. We're going to have some slips and whatnot, but we're going to make progress in April. And at the end of April, we're going to say, yes, I've got 30 days under my belt of getting on the path that I'm supposed to be on. And it feels good. And every day you'll give yourself a little bit of dopamine and serotonin that you did it well that day. You knocked it out. You're going to hear those words, well done, that the Prince of Peace is telling you at the end of every day. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to turn this mind change business into not thinking about it anymore. We're going to start doing it. I want to arm you with a little bit of clarity on how to get clear about how to get where we want to be and where God wants us to be in our lives. We're going to get really clear starting today. Hey, I'm glad to have you listening. I'm Dr. Lee Warren. I live in Nebraska in the United States of America with my unbelievable wife, Lisa Warren. I'm a neurosurgeon and an author, and I'm here to help you harness neuroscience, the power of your brain, faith, the power of your spirit, and good old common sense to help you lead a healthier, better, happier life. Didn't mean to leave Harvey and Lewis out, but they're here with us too. Hey, listen, you can't change your life until you change your mind. I'm here to help you learn the art of self-brain surgery. To get that done, you can get the show notes and more on my website at wleewarrenmd.com. And if you need prayer, or if you want to join us as a prayer partner to help other people, go to wleewarrenmd.com/prayer. Check it out. If you like the show, please subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tap those 3 buttons on your app and hit share. Send a text message to somebody and tell them that you're listening to the Dr. Lee Warren podcast. I hope you're listening on Podbean. drleewarren.podbean.com is my favorite place to listen to podcasts. Hey, tell a couple of friends about it today. Let's see those numbers go up and get this message out, okay? Hey, I'm Dr. Lee Warren. We're here to change our minds so we can change our life. It's almost the end of Mind Change March. We're getting ready for Action April. Let's get after it. Okay, friend. Now, I told you a few weeks ago, as we started season 2, I told you that we have 3 things we have to do to get on the path to real life change. And the first 2 are getting right about who you are, peeling off all those labels, changing our minds about the things that the life has allowed us to believe about ourselves that aren't true, and to get real about what we want, to stop saying, I want to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to lose 50 pounds, I'm going to run a marathon, I'm going to make $1 million, I'm going to marry that girl, I'm going to do all these things that we talk about. We're going to clear all that stuff up, and we're going to actually start doing what God wants us to do that's going to make us get to the place where we're designed to be. So you have to get real about what you want. You have to clarify. And then you got really, really clearly figure out the steps, the path, the plan, the way and the manner in which we are going to get those things done. And that's what we're getting after today. After we get right about who we are, when we understand our identity in Christ, and we start sorting out what we really are led to and desire to accomplish at this point in our lives. But in reality, once we get real about what we want and we're sure where we need to go, it's really sometimes hard to figure out how to get there. And I think that one of the things that holds us back in general is a failure to really set intentions around the things that we'll have to do to reach our goals. So we stumble in, we say, I want to do this, and we stumble into it, we get distracted, we get busy, we get sidetracked, we get discouraged, something happens, and we get knocked off because we didn't have our intention set properly. We didn't have our plan in place. So getting clear on our path to success is one of the most important things we can do if we want to make progress in our lives. And here's a good example. Now, I talked about this a couple episodes back, but I want to bring it back to you because it's so important, and we're going to put it in this context of getting clear. So our youngest daughter, Kaylin, is the person who likes to talk about stuff. When she was growing up and lived with us, she would come to me and Lisa in the morning, and she'd say, hey guys, let's talk about this idea that I have. Let's talk about this thing I want to do. She was not a kid who just sort of reacted and did things. She had this mind of wanting to sort of plan things out. And so we would have these conversations about whether or not she should do a particular thing. It was brilliant. She was a really wise little kid, and still is. She's in grad school at Alcorn. So I don't know if you're listening, Kaylin, but I'm proud of you. I'm proud of all my kids, of course, but this is about Kaylin. She would talk to us about these things, and we had this thing in our family that we talked about that I called the 5-5-5 test, and I told you about it the other day. But basically, I'd say something like this. Lisa and I would talk about it with her, and would say, okay, how is this decision to date this guy or start this thing or end this thing or quit this thing or go somewhere or spend this money or pick one school over another or choose a major, how is that thing going to affect your life 5 minutes from now, 5 hours from now, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, 5 decades, 5 generations? How is this thing going to play out into the future if you make this particular decision right now? And now you can take that 555 idea. If I drink this thing, if I take this pill, if I do this procedure, if I sign that contract, if I marry this person, what is that going to look like 5 minutes from now, 5 days, 5 hours, right? All that. So just that's a test. It's a filter you can put in place in your life between your thought and your action. And it's wise. There's some wisdom there. Now, obviously, you can't always know how a decision is going to change your life 5 years later, but it is a useful thought exercise because we often, especially when we're young, we make decisions that we later realize we never would have made if we just looked at them from a different perspective first. Now, a few years ago, Lisa bought me a really cool piece of art. I'm looking at it right now, from a Swedish glass master named Bertil Valian. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to his website to some really cool work. And this one piece it's a small metal and glass axe head. It looks like an axe head that he sculpted into a face. So on the metal axe head, he sculpted out a face, and then he put glass around it to finish out the shape of the axe head. And when you spin this thing around, it's on a little pedestal and it turns. And when you turn it, the face inside looks at you a different way from every angle. It's like the face, the eyes are following you around. It's really cool, brilliant idea and beautifully executed. And I don't really get artists. By the way, I can't draw a stick figure. My daughter, Kimber, our daughter Kimber is an amazing painter. She's a fine artist. She graduated from Auburn University in a fine arts degree, and she's an amazing painter. And you should check her website out, Kimberlyn Dryden Art. By the way, a little plug for Kimber. But so I'll put that link in the show notes too, by the way. But artists can see things, and they can create things that we can't even, normal people like me can't even imagine. I can make music, I can do art with surgery, but I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't render something into 3D. And this guy Bertil Valiant, he made this sculpture that just changes vastly, dramatically when you change the perspective just a little bit. And just as that face in the axe head looks a little different from various angles, so do our decisions look when we take a moment and apply a filter to them, like the 555 test. It's just a little filter, but Kaylin has told us over the years how many times that has helped her make good decisions. It's a little filter. Another aspect of getting clarity on how to reach our goals is what I call the level paths test. Our kids will roll their eyes when we talk about this, because I said it so much as they were growing up. They've heard it a million times. But this is a powerful, powerful tool for you. I need to share it with you. It's important enough that it's in the Bible twice, so that's got to say a lot, right? In all the real estate in the entire Bible, God put this in there 2 different times for us, so it must be important. Hebrews 12, and 13, and there's more about that chapter coming. The writer gives us this advice, and he's actually quoting from the other place, Proverbs 4:26. Here's what he says in Hebrews. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and your weak knees. Make level paths for your feet so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. And when our kids were thinking about a big decision, we would ask them to consider the path that decision will put them on for their lives. Would it make their journey harder or easier? Would it smooth things for them or give them struggles? Here's a good example. When your kid is going to date somebody, you can look at that person's family, you can look at their history, you can look at their behavior, you can look at their performance, you can look at the bags that they bring into that relationship, and you can project into the future. And if you're old enough, like me, to have looked back on your own life and all the things that you've encountered and gone through and done and succeeded or failed at, you'll understand the wisdom of teaching your kids to be more proactive in their thinking going forward, right? And kids never get it when they're young because everybody's ruled by emotion when they're that age. So, but if you say, hey, is this 5 years from now, is this decision, this path you're about to get on, is it going to be smooth for you? Now, if you've got you're dating a young man his father has been married 18 times, and he's got, 17 ex-wives, and you got 14 step siblings in there, and all of that. That person doesn't have a model for a healthy relationship, right? It doesn't mean they can't have one. But if you're at the outset of it, you're not attached to them yet, and you're just looking at how wise is it to get entangled in this situation or not, maybe there's some wisdom there to say, maybe that's not the best path I could take, right? If you're entering into a business deal and the potential partner has filed bankruptcy 45 times and he's been in jail for writing, hot checks all over town, and now it looks different and this idea looks juicy and you're thinking you might make some money, well, maybe back up a second and say, people don't really ever change their stripes. Maybe this won't be a level path. Maybe this is going to be a rocky path for me. Now, understand, I've had a rocky path through a lot of the things in my life. Lisa and I, we've told you before, we both have been divorced before. We've had some rocky paths. And I'm not saying we always do it right. I'm not saying we always make the best decision. But go back and think about whether the path you're about to enter is a level path or not. When mountain climbers try to figure out how they're going to get up the mountain, they rarely say, you know what, I'm going to take the most dangerous, avalanche-prone, hard, danger-filled path to the top of this mountain. That's not what they say. They say, I want to get up this mountain alive and get back down it alive. And so I'm going to plot out a path, a course, a route up this mountain that's going to be the safest one. I'm still going up the mountain. So yeah, there's going to be some danger. There's going to be some hardship. There's going to be some difficulties. But I'm going to do it in a way that's going to get me there in the safest manner possible, right? So when our kids were just considering a big decision, we would ask them to consider the path that decision would put them on for their life. Would it make their journey harder or easier? Would it smooth things out, or would it create more struggles? And understand this, trying to use wisdom and discernment in decision-making so as to have a level path forward is not the same thing as saying that you should always take the easy road. I don't want you to take the easy road. Sometimes the hard road is the right road, right? I'm not saying you should always take the easy path, but there are ways to make the path that you are on more level. There are definitely many, and perhaps most things in our lives that we need and sometimes must do that are hard to accomplish. And often the greatest learning experiences and achievements of our lives come through great struggle. So level paths is not about avoiding hard things or growth opportunities. Making level paths is advice aimed at avoiding unnecessary pain. It's avoiding unnecessary detours and potholes and other things that might ultimately trip us up and lead us to failure or limitations in accomplishing what God wants for us. The level paths idea is that when we ignore red flags in relationships, business decisions, etc., we can end up really limiting our impact, our happiness, and our ultimate success in life. Now, we don't always get to choose the things that we are faced with in life. And all of us have inherent strengths and weaknesses that we bring into every situation. That's why the Hebrew writer called them feeble arms and weak knees. We already have trouble, so why pick a path that's harder than it has to be? So life's hard enough as it is. And if we want to get very clear about how to get where our hearts tell us that we need to go, we need to choose the straightest path possible to get there, since we know there will be lots of bumps and trials ahead that we don't get to choose. So choose the ones that are going to give you the best opportunity to get where God wants you to go in the best manner possible. So getting clear about where we need to go involves forethought. It involves learning to apply filters like the 5-5-5 test and the level paths test, but it also requires strategy, intentionality, and perseverance. Lisa and I have been working out more consistently in the last couple of years since we bought the Peloton treadmill and subsequently the Peloton bike. And we love the community of trainers that Peloton has assembled and the classes and the whole culture around Peloton. It really worked for us. Now, one of the trainers is a guy named Chase Tucker. I've said this to you before, but he encourages people to work out first thing in the morning. Just get it done. His catchphrase is this: if you win the morning, you will win the day. And that has proved to be true for me. I rarely have the willpower or the opportunity to work out later in the day. It just usually something comes up and something happens. If I don't get my workout knocked out early in the morning, sometimes it feels selfish because there might be something else going on and I could use that time to do something different. But if I don't take care of my physical body first thing in the morning, I usually don't get it done. If I don't win the morning, I don't win the day in that regard. And that will turn out to be true for you in some area of your life. I'm sure of it. It's proven true for me over and over and over. If I want to accomplish something, if I want a podcast, I got to do it 4 o'clock in the morning. I need to do it first thing. But it goes beyond just making it more likely that you'll actually work out that day. Scratching off a goal off your list first thing in the morning really sets your heart and your brain up for whatever else comes along in the day. If you win the morning, it helps you get in a good place to keep on winning all day long. There was a book that we read. We used to do a book a week challenge every odd year. So every other year on the odd years, we would do a book a week challenge with our readers. And sometime I'll do a post where I list all those books that we read for you, because people are asking me frequently what we're reading. So one of those books was the guy, William McRaven, who was a Navy admiral. He wrote a book called Make Your Bed. And the whole point of it was do something ritualistically in the morning that you do every day to just get yourself under some kind of discipline. So you're doing something positive first thing in the morning. And Make Your Bed is a good example. Do something to win the morning. And it gives you a little dopamine hit. It gives you a little neurotransmitter boost that your brain will say, I accomplished something today, so now I'm going to go accomplish something else. Another one of the trainers in Peloton is a woman named Selena Samuela, really strong athlete. And she says, set your intention and follow through. Like at the start of every class, she'll say, whatever you're doing on the treadmill, you don't have to run a 4-minute mile, but set your intention. I'm going to run for 60 seconds before I walk. I'm going to sprint at 2 degrees incline and this many miles per hour. I'm going to do this for 30 seconds. I'm not going to quit. Set your intention and follow through. And every time you knock off one of those things that you did, every time you hit one of those sprint intervals, every time you finish a month under your budget, every time you pay off that credit card, every time you navigate a difficult time in your marriage and stay together, every time it gives you some boost that you can do it again. You can do something else that was hard. Every time, if you set your intention and follow through, when we're intentional about our decisions and the steps that we need to take to get them done, like making level paths, we are much more likely to achieve our goals. And this often plays out in weight loss. When people have trouble avoiding the late night snacks or glasses of wine or whatever food related issues they might have, we set our intentions around that, then maybe there won't be any Cheetos in the pantry. I told you this the other day in the first place. Remember that Flip Wilson deal with the devil made me do it? Like, he didn't make you buy the Cheetos. He didn't make you able to eat them because they were in your pantry. You did that. Like, you went to the store and you bought the Cheetos and you put them in your pantry. So don't blame it on the devil when you have the booze still in your cabinet, right? And don't blame the devil for something that you put in your pantry. So being intentional about our goals will help us go beyond the accomplishing, but go out even a little bit further in planning and strategy and level paths and 555 and all that stuff. We're using an app called Noom. We've had so many readers and listeners that have written in about how can I lose weight, or how can I do this, or how can I do that. And so we've tried to find some resources to help people. And we found this app called Noom, N as in Nancy, OOM as in Mary, November, Oscar, Mike, Noom.com. I am not sponsoring. They do not sponsor me. I'm not paid to say that. I'm just telling you about this app that we found because it seems to be useful. And unlike a lot of these diet trackers or food logs or all those things, Noom actually has a lot of psychology around the science of why we eat what we eat and how we make decisions around food and why we do certain things and how we think about exercise and all of that. And it's kind of this cool neuropsychology program, and it's an app, and it's really a kind of a cool culture. And anyway, it seems to be, we haven't really, Lisa and I aren't like people who need to lose 100 pounds. We're not really experienced with it yet, but we're exploring it to see if it's something valuable. And so far, it seems to be very helpful. I need to tighten my life up a little bit, and it's helping me. So anyway, using something like that, being intentional about your goals, goes out to the planning and strategy. It goes to where we put what we put on our grocery list, and not just going to the store and walking around randomly grabbing everything. We intentionally set our plan for what we're going to purchase and put in our pantry, so that when we have a problem and we need a snack, there's something healthy in there instead of a bag of Cheetos, right? Why do I pick on Cheetos? Well, because I like Cheetos. I'm sorry, the crunchy ones especially. How do we, it goes to how we set up our investments. It goes do we put our church clothes out on Saturday night so it's easier the next morning to get over that hurdle of getting all the kids dressed and ready for church. Thanks, Mom, by the way. She always did that. Set your intentions, friend, and follow through. Set your intentions and follow through. Win the morning, and you will win the day. And the last thing goes, even before we get on the path, it happens at the starting line. Before the gun goes off, before the race begins, you got to think about this. Go back to Hebrews 12 with me one more time. The very first verse of Hebrews 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. And listen, if you're getting ready to start down a path towards a goal we know we're called to, if you know you figured out what you changed your mind about in March, and you know it's Action April, it's time to go. So if you've taken the time to choose the most level path, to filter the decisions through the 555 test, to try to win the morning by starting early, to try to set your intentions on it, then why would you enter the race carrying a bunch of extra stuff on your back? If you want to outrun the guy next to you, if you want to get through this race successfully, why would you carry a bunch of garbage in the race with you, right? So the last step of getting really clear is to try to get rid of anything that's holding you back or anything that might slow you down. The Hebrew writer reminds us that we're being watched. There's a great cloud of witnesses. This is referring to the saints that have run this life before who are cheering us on. I like to think of my mother-in-law Patty, and my son Mitch up there cheering us on. But also, it's community around you, great cloud of witnesses. There are people watching you, friend. You might not think you're a person of influence, but if you've got kids, they're watching you. If you've got a spouse, they're watching you. If you've got coworkers and they know you're a Christian, they're watching you. And they need to see you succeed. You guys are watching me. Like, it's one of the things about you're going to put your life out there. You better square yourself away because somebody's watching you, right? So you're not the guy who should have some kind of moral failure or get a DUI or, have some big problem in your life, because people are watching you and they're gonna be hurt if you don't succeed. So that's one of the problems that happens when big famous pastors and preachers have some kind of problem, because there's so many people that, it's hard to see Jesus. He seems far off, but we can see him in other people. When I look at Lisa, I see Jesus, and she helps me get through, right? So she's part of my great cloud of witnesses. I'm watching her and she's watching me. And the Hebrew writer says, hey, there's people watching. So get ready for this race and cast off the stuff that's going to keep you from succeeding. So we get close to being done with Mind Change March. This is the time to change your mind about the things that are holding you back. Because those people are watching, because there's a great cloud of witnesses supporting you, I bet they're yelling at me like, hey, Lee, don't be a moron. Get rid of the blank that is holding you back. Get rid of this junk that you're carrying that's slowing you down. Untangle yourself from the blankety blank that's going to trip you up. So friend, there's something in your life. There's something. Is it guilt or shame or regret or doubt or an unhealthy relationship or a sinful relationship that you need to get out of today? Listen, friend, no matter what your brain is telling you or what you might have convinced yourself of, if you are in a side relationship that's not to who you're married to, you need to end it today. It will not help you in your life. It will hurt you. Send that text message and say, this is over. Do it right now. If you're in an unhealthy relationship with things that you find on your computer, download an app that will block you from going to those websites and get yourself an accountability partner. If you're looking at stuff on the internet and that's a problem for you, you need to put something in your way that will block you from doing that. If you're drinking too much, you need help. Go get help, okay? If you're spending money inappropriately, friend, if you can't stop clicking and giving yourself dopamine hits by buying things, you need help with that. Get help with it. So whatever those things are that are holding you back, you need to take care of it. If you are dating someone that is not helping you get closer to the Lord, that is not making a level path for your life, if somebody is abusing you, you need to fix that. You need to get out of it. Okay? You need to get squared away. We're about to be in Action April, and the time to change your mind is now. And Hebrews writer is saying to you, the gun's getting ready to go off, right? Boom, it's Action April. The gun's getting ready to go off. We're about to get in this race. You need to make sure your shoes are tied. You set your intentions. You get rid of things that are holding you back, and you need to get ready to run. Do you get it? So getting right about who we are, real about what we want, that's 2/3 of the equation. But the last one is getting clear about how to get there. And so apply appropriate tests like the 555 and the level pass. Look at the decisions that you need to make from a different perspective. Spin that axe set around and think about it from a few different perspectives. Set your intention. Win the morning. Get rid of hardships and hindrances and entanglements like bad habits and harmful relationships and sin patterns that are holding you back. And if you want to become healthier and feel better and be happier in your life, in your relationships, in your spiritual life, in your finances, in your work, or anything else, if you want to be happier and healthier and feel better, you've got to be clear about where you're going and how you intend to get there. And it's always best to start with Christ and work out from there. And if you're looking for something to read, along these lines, check out this book called Happiness by Randy Alcorn. That book is blowing my mind. It's long. It's not a superficial treatise on happiness like some people have written. This is a legit look at what the Bible says about who God is and how God is wired and why he wants you to be happy and why it's so important. And this book will teach you what the Bible has to say about happiness, and it will be a mind shift for you. This will help you get right, real, and clear. Check it out, Happiness by Randy Alcorn. Look, you can't change your life until you change your mind, and you have to change your mind if you want to get anything done. And to do that, you've got to get right about who you are, real about what you want, and clear on how you're going to get there. It's almost the end of Mind Change March, so this is the time to get your brain right. We're going to go in Action April, but to do any of that stuff, what do we have to do? We have to start today. Hey, thanks for listening. The Dr. Lee Warren podcast is listener supported. Check out patron.podbean.com/Dr. Lee Warren, patron.podbean.com/Dr. Lee Warren if you want to consider getting involved. Patrons and partners get free books, transcripts, special patron-only episodes, and more. And partners like you allow us to stay ad-free and keep growing. Please subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode, and subscribe to the newsletter, wleewarrenmd.com/newsletter. You'll find out about the Infinitely Happier app. You can get on the prayer wall. You can do all kinds of cool stuff at my website, wleewarrenmd.com. Check it out. Hey, the theme music for the show is Water into Wine by Tommy Walker, graciously provided for free by Tommy and the good folks over at Tommy Walker Ministries, who are changing the world with free worship resources for people all over the place. Get involved, get the music, consider supporting Tommy's great work at tommywalkerministries.org. And if you need prayer, go to the prayer wall, wleewarrenmd.com/prayer, wleewarrenmd.com/prayer. Remember, friend, you can't change your life until you change your mind, and you have to start today. We're almost done with Mind Change March. The gun's getting ready to go off for Action April. I want you to get it done in April. Set your intentions, win the morning, win the day, starting today. I'm Dr. Lee Warren. I'll talk to you soon, friend. God bless. Have a great day.